here we are back in the garage. We've got another assistant. Hey. So we've got the 123 with us, and I've repaired these side pieces. These pieces retain the side rubbers in place. So you've got the rubbers that fit over there, and they also hold the bumper in place as well by the corners over here. Over here, about this much of it was damaged, and it wasn't repairable, so I just replaced it. I bent a piece on my bending brake and replaced this piece and drilled a fresh hole. And on this side I can show you exactly how it fits. It fits through a little hole over here. So this is actually how the fender should be. You can see that this is how it was made. It was made in two pieces and welded over here. That's how they manufactured it. It has a little indentation over here for this, and this guy also fits in. So it's got that same thing. It mates over here. You've got these three holes, 1, 2, 3, and the rubber fits in between. And you've got these over here. So these would allow little screws, those tab thingies, and yeah, this holds the rubber in place in the corners. But also this hole over here is for the bumper to fit in place. Then the bumper also bolts in over here. This goes over here, and you're good. That's pretty much it. So this time I'm just going to assemble it because there is a lot of work, and I'm missing some bits. I'm actually missing some pieces I would require to repair this. There are these little red clips that go into the body, and the body seems to have the holes have enlarged. So what I'm gonna have to do is, when I take this fender off, I'm gonna repaint the whole thing, fix this area as well, fix up this hole. It looks like this side was damaged, so I'm not really gonna repair that. Maybe if later on I get a clean fender, I'm gonna replace it. But this hole could be repaired. This rust over here will be repaired, and yeah, that's what I'm planning to do after I reassemble the car. I'll reassemble the front and tighten up the belt this week, and I'm also going to probably get some makeshift thing done so that the windows go up and down, because the wiring's quite bad on this car. I don't know how to solve it. I'm not really good with electricals, but I think I could figure it out. So I'm going to do that this time. We'll get this back on the road running this week, and maybe if we're lucky, we'll be able to get to this as well. So I need to make a fiberglass mold for this. I did some repairs, some things that I thought needed addressing, like some curves and stuff, and also the way this fits in is now this has a perfect lip for the fender and stuff like that. And basically I wanted to explain how you could make a fiberglass mold. If we're lucky, we'll be able to do this week. There's always something else that comes up, so get a little tied up. But basically, when you're making a fiberglass mold, you have to think about how it's released. How will it come out without damaging itself? Because what would happen is, let's say I made a mold, one-piece mold for this. The mold would want to come out this way. They would come out this way. But the problem is, this would be mechanically locked in place. You could bend this inwards, but there's not enough flexibility with this material. So that is one problem. If it was flexible, the mold or the piece was flexible, it would come out easily. There's no problem. You don't have to worry about it. But when it's a rigid mold and a rigid piece being made, you have to worry about mechanical locking happening. So what I'm going to do when I make a mold is I'm going to create like a boundary over here, so that when a piece is made, you have this edge to work with, and then you trim it off when you're done. So I'll have to create a boundary over here, and then I also have to figure out how to make this a mold, how many pieces. The less pieces a mold is, the better it is. You're making it more complicated, there's more leakages and stuff like that. So you'd rather have just a two-piece mold. What I'm thinking of doing is taking it down this way. So I have this as one piece and another piece this way. So this mold goes down from this edge, and this mold goes this way. So that'll be easier. It'll not get locked up anywhere, hopefully. Not too much. It will get locked somewhere for sure. I think somewhere around here it would get locked up, but it'll be able to come out. I'm sure I'll figure it out, and it's not too difficult then. But this is a bit too much to ask for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it in two pieces, and I'm going to show you guys the process, hopefully this week. Let's see if it's possible. Maybe next week otherwise, but let's see if I can do it in this episode. I'll also work on the S10 a bit, change the steering wheel back to the stock one, to the airbag one, because mine actually had airbags, and it's the only S10 with airbags. So I thought I'd put it back. I finished the alignment, and the car's driving wonderfully for once. So yeah, let's watch this, and we'll see the progress on this and get back to the other projects. Here we are back in the workshop. I've basically made a barrier for the two-piece mold that breaks the mold into two halves. So then what will happen is I'll remove this after this fiberglass is applied here, and it'll separate. So it'll split in this section. So basically whatever's green right now is going to be a separate piece of the mold. What I'll do now is I'll create a barrier around this line, and that will create one part of the mold. So this whole area would become one part of the mold, and then I'll remove this and make the other part of the mold, and that's how you make a two-piece mold. So that's basically the progress on this. I've also started fitting those two rubber pieces. So these are the rubbers I was talking about, and yeah, you have to fasten them from the top. That's what these three holes were for. On this side you can see how it works. You have this nut. The nut fits into the hole with a very large washer, and then this would these three holes align with these three holes, and usually they have something like I don't know what you call them. You have these clips which allow screws to get threaded in, but I don't have those anymore. Oh yeah, I do. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna replace these, and I'll probably put a nut and bolt over here. So that's what I plan to do over here, and yeah, for the rest of it, then I just have to put the bumper back in. It'll slot into that, and I'll reassemble this while this mold is getting prepped. So then this is functional. Then I just have to tighten this belt over here. Now it's more visible now that the car is outside and in the light. So what I'll have to do is loosen this bolt over here, this nut, and we have a tension system on this car. So this nut would be tightened. Yeah, it would be tightened, and it would give this belt pressure. So that's something that you have originally on the car, and it functions. But otherwise, sometimes they just get messed up, and then you just have to put a bar or something and pull it this way. So I'm gonna do that and show you guys how it's done. Yesterday I fit up the front end, so the bumper, the rubber sides, everything's back in place. The headlights are back in. One of the screws on the bottom isn't long enough, so I'm going to have to source those. It is a problem sometimes when you can't find the hardware, or the hardware is worn out, so you need to replace it. I guess you get good alternatives, but you've got to waste some time on that. So I guess accumulating all the stuff you require is the best, and then you can go and acquire it in one go. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten the alternator belt, and I'm also going to tell you guys about a new problem about re-registering cars and how that's become quite an issue, and accordingly you should be deciding on whether or not you should be getting a classic car. I'm back on this project too. I had some help around, so I thought, okay, might as well put this on the lift. And I've been measuring up things like these lower arms. I had a problem with this whole project because the drive shafts were not matching. So what would happen is the length had changed, and also the way they couple has changed between the Uno and the Palio. So the Palio gearbox had a different way it would mate. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to first take off the wheels, of course, take off the hubs, and I'm going to check if these lower arms match these. On paper, when I measure up the mounts, they do match. If I could put the subframe, I would put the subframe too. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that, but I thought it might be a good idea, considering I then get that engine mount correctly. So this is one of the engine mounts. It's on the subframe. We have another engine mount over here, and we have another engine mount over there. So things might have to shift a bit, but I'll get the alignment right. I am off, so if I were to use these arms and I'm gonna use if I'm gonna use these arms from a Palio, what will happen is the engine position has to be the same distance from both sides as the Palio. So yeah, I might have to shift the engine a bit to one of the sides, but it's got the right orientation. I mean, it's angled correctly, but might not be in the right position. So I'll be doing that in a bit after I work on the Mercedes. I'm going to touch this and figure out how to take this forward. So here we are back in the 123's engine bay. I'm going to show you guys how to change this belt. I've got a 17 number spanner with me, and I've also got a 13 number. You've got an adjustable screw over here which sets the tension, and you've also got what would you say, you've got a bolt which holds everything in place and tightens up. So what I've realized is that this is the last belt. Unlike serpentine belts where one belt does all the work, you have to do this in succession. Maybe I can manage to pull this off without much of a headache, but let's see if I can figure this out. So it is all around the crank. They all are on the crank pulley. So probably I'll have to get it over the belt first, or take off all the belts, which I don't want to do because that's a pain in the ass. But yeah, today I wanted to talk about something. I wanted to talk about registration and paperwork, because recently, about a month ago, I kind of did all my paperwork because I heard that paperwork will be getting more expensive. So I thought, hey, why don't I just do all the paperwork and be safe? And that was a great decision. What happened was, now you have to spend about 40,000 more for a car like this every 5 years. Insurance will probably go up in time. That's normal, but paperwork has gone up that much, 40,000 extra. Then you have fines. So what I wanted to tell you guys is, let's say you buy an imported bike, it's going to cost you 10,000 more every 5 years, if after the first 15 years. And if you buy a classic vehicle, an actual classic that's more than 50 years old, like let's say a Lambretta or a Beetle, you're going to be spending around 20,000 every 10 years. So that does make more sense compared to earlier. It is a lot more money, but the classic car guys have it a bit easier compared to the young timer guys. The thing is, when you're picking up a young timer, you have to make a decision. If you're going to pay, so a car like this, like a 123, would cost you 40,000 more, while a car like, let's say, maybe a Fiat, we don't know yet what they'll do. Will they look at a car and say this is an imported brand? Will they say it's marked as imported on the paperwork? Because in Goa, for example, I don't think the data has been imported. So what would happen then? Will they know if my car is in import? Will I be able to tell them no, it was made in India? Will they understand that? What happens to a Telco Mercedes? Will they consider that an import because it's a German car, or will they say no, it's not imported? You will have to fight this out. It is going to be a headache, and to say the least. But the real thing is, let's say you're in the market for a classic car, you should be thinking about these things, because this is going to cost you 40k extra. If you buy, let's say, a Maruti and you want to pass it every time, it's going to cost you around 5,000 extra. And let's say an imported bike would cost you 10k extra every 5 years. So that 40,000 could be about, let's say you're picking up a cheaper classic car. Let's say you buy a 124. I think that is not a classic car, a young timer. I think a 124 is one of the cheapest imported young timers you could get. If it is considered an imported car, which then it becomes a problem, you should be getting it in the best condition you can, and you should be getting it in with up-to-date papers, because that is ideal. You should be getting it with up-to-date papers, because if it's not up-to-date, you're going to be paying fines. You're going to be paying fines which have increased. I believe it's something like, it is $500 a month. I've also seen $50 a day, which is quite expensive. I've not sure which one is the correct one. We don't know yet till people go through the process, but you should be spending more time looking at things like this, the legalities, and you should be considering the best car you can afford. If you can buy, let's say, a Ponton or a Fintail, which is worth a lot more once you're done, you should rather pick that up. But that doesn't mean you should discard these cars. It's that you should be buying them based on your ability. It doesn't make sense to buy a car. Would you rather have two 123, like a 123 and a 124, instead of one Ponton or a Fintail? What do you do? It's all based on your taste as well. But if you're if you're looking at budgets and trying to look at it that way, and you rather have two classic cars, I think it's better to have one and just have less of a headache. It's not a major amount, but I think compared to the value of the car, it is quite a bit, because you're looking at around 10% to 5% of the value, right? If you're looking at 40,000 rupees, I would say a 123 in prime condition is what, about 8 lakhs plus. So that does become a problem. I see that as an issue. So what do you do? You pick up the best car you can afford, and that does go as well with these type of cars, like a 123. You have to look at how manageable it is. Is this a classic car you can manage on your own? Will you need major help from mechanic? I think when you break down these cars into three components, you have now a fourth component compared to earlier, but you have three major components. You have bodywork, you have mechanicals, and you have interiors. We also look at other things like what trim spec it is and all that, but two of these components should be good. The new component is paperwork. That is important, really important now, but I think you should be looking at all these things. And let's say two components are good, or actually three in this case. It is a sensible buy. The less of these components that are good, the less you should be paying, and the more you should be thinking about it. So yeah, when it comes to bodywork, everything's always going to cost the same. Any Mercedes Beetle, everything's gonna, like, you have to think of that as a standard cost, because labor, metal, and everything is just the same. Parts are very similar. You have certain brands that cost you a lot more, like that R26 that I picked up. It's starting to look like it'll cost me as much as a car to restore, right? So that is a problem. So you have to look at these things in a sensible manner, and yeah, I think that's the best way of looking at it. Just think about it correctly. You have these components that you should be thinking about. You also have the paperwork, which has gotten extremely expensive. So please look into this, guys, and yeah, we're gonna get back to working on the car. So I did the belts on the 123. I had to take off the one to the power steering pump. I had to remove the one to the AC compressor, and then I got this one on. The problem is that I will need to adjust it in a bit, and it will have to eat into the pulley a bit. But what was happening is, because it was a tighter belt, it moved all the way forward, and the fan blades of the alternator were touching the mount of the alternator, so it was jamming up. But I took a little pipe over here, lifted this up a bit, and now it's not touching. That's done, and now the car's ready to use. There's no problem. So yeah, now I can use the car. Today, this week's progress hasn't been that much. I've been tied up with other stuff, but next week I'll be working on this. I'll be working on the Uno, and maybe after that I'll get to the Lada, or I'll get to the E30. Let's see what happens. I'll also have to finish off this mold. I do need to make a few pieces, so that'll happen next week as well. Let me know what you guys think of the new format. I'll be continuing with this and doing these weekly updates. The videos are a bit longer, so I think it's working out nicer, but I think that's what I'm planning on doing. And let me know what you think about the whole new format. See you guys next time. Bye bye.